But I have I've had even people like President Bukele from El Salvador who managed to put in prison 100,000 murderous thugs, and he was he called me. He's like, I'm worried about your security. I'm like, you're worried about my security? I'm like, what? Okay.
That's Trump campaign donor Elon Musk at the 2025 Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC. In recent weeks, the White House advisor and head of DOGE has locked arms online with Nayib Bukele in deriding a so-called judicial coup as federal judges freeze aspects of Donald Trump's agenda. I'm Roman Gressier, the editor of El Faro English. It's Friday, March 21st, and you're listening to our weekly podcast, Central America in Minutes.
In Nicaragua, the house arrest of Daniel Ortega's brother
relates more to El Salvador and Honduras than to Guatemala. In the case of Guatemala,
they say globalism comes to die at CPAC, but in El Salvador, it's already dead.
Central America in Minutes on El Faro English.
In an hour and a half on February 25th, U.S. judges blocked Donald Trump from freezing federal grants, ordered him to pay outstanding foreign aid, and halted an executive order suspending refugee admissions. Nayib Bukele was quick to chime in. Fun fact, he wrote on X, checks and balance don't actually exist unless the judicial branch can also be checked and balanced. Corrupt judges, he added, quote, form a cartel, a judicial dictatorship, and block all reforms. This Sunday, Trump defied a court order in deporting hundreds of Salvadorans and Venezuelans to be imprisoned under the state of exception in El Salvador. Of the court, Bukele declared, the U.S. is facing a judicial coup. By Thursday afternoon, the post had reportedly been viewed over 145 million times. It's vintage sleight of hand from Bukele, who illegally removed El Salvador's constitutional chamber magistrates almost 4 years ago. Late into the night on May 1st, 2021, only hours after a new assembly took office, by Bukele's decree, his party's supermajority removed the magistrates and attorney general, casting aside legal and parliamentary procedure. The fiercely loyal National Civil Police sent officers to guarantee the magistrates' expulsion. The chamber and top prosecutor had become a thorn in Bukele's side, limiting some executive orders and investigating pandemic corruption in Bukele's covert gang negotiations. Bukele branded the court, quote, enemies of the people, whose rulings against his draconian COVID lockdowns meant they sought, quote, the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Salvadorans. Upon their removal, the magistrates were accused of converting the High Court into a super branch above the executive. The removals were a closely guarded secret, even among Bukele's legislators, until they arrived that day in the assembly. The move was so brazen and drew such uproar as a technical coup that it even drew out OAS Secretary General Luis Almagro, who had previously dismissed Bukele's critics as, quote, consistently hysterical, to issue a condemnation. State pandemic expenses, 2/3 of which were under investigation, were declared secret and later amnestied, even though, under the terms of Bukele's recent deal with the IMF, he promised to shed some light onto audits of pandemic spending by the Court of Accounts, which he now controls too. Bukele then purged 1/3 of all judges on criteria of old age, while publicly claiming it was to fight corruption. The new magistrates in September 2021 said Bukele could run for re-election in 2024, despite explicit constitutional prohibitions. Attorney General Rodolfo Delgado has shuttered high-reaching corruption probes and exiled anti-mafia prosecutors. Now Bukele wields total power in El Salvador. In January, he changed the constitution to allow him to rewrite it at will. His rhetoric of cleaning house resonates with MAGA. The only way to restore rule of the people is to impeach judges, wrote Musk on X. That is what it took to fix El Salvador. Hey, before our last segment, I have an invitation for you. Consider joining our community of crowdfunders at support.elfaro.net. As you likely know, El Faro means lighthouse or beacon. Starting at $5 a month, what you pay for a slightly overpriced coffee, you can help us keep podcasting, translating, and shedding a light on Central America at a time when global press freedom and struggles against authoritarianism are more interconnected than ever. In today's second and final segment, we return to the Honduran primaries, which we covered last week in episode 2021. After the March 9th election, the vote count is ongoing amid a series of irregularities in polling station logistics and the chain of custody of ballots. But at this point, there's little doubt as to the winners from the three major parties. Defense Minister Rixi Moncada won almost 93% of primary votes in the ruling left-wing party Libre, according to preliminary figures reported by the National Electoral Council, or CNE. Moncada is a stern former rural teacher and ex-finance minister. She's politically close to presidential advisor Mel Zelaya, the Honduran administration's power broker. Moncada is now poised to take undisputed control over the party apparatus in the run-up to the November 30th election. As both candidate and defense minister, Moncada ran in the primaries despite a conflict of interest. The army is one of the institutions tasked with supervising the electoral process. On Tuesday, she said she'll resign as minister prior to the end of May, when she is constitutionally mandated to step down.
The Constitution states 6 months beforehand. The election will be held on Sunday, November 30th. 6 months before then, my resignation must be constitutionally presented by the last week of May.
The Liberal Party ticket, meanwhile, reflects the fissures of the Xiomara Castro administration. Salvador Nasralla, a bombastic former sports broadcaster who allied as vice president of Xiomara Castro in the 2021 election, took home around 58% of liberal votes. Nasralla is a perennial contender. He asserts that he lost the presidency in 2017 through fraud to Juan Orlando Hernández, who took an unconstitutional second term that year. After taking office in 2022, Nasralla broke with Castro and became a leading opposition figure. He's a one-man show, having founded his own party and named it after himself, Salvador de Honduras, or Savior of Honduras. He has cast himself as aligned with Trump, fist-bumping on TikTok to the tune of YMCA. Nasralla beat out Jorge Calix, a congressman who defected from the ruling party Libre after 2 years of bitter divisions, which included a fistfight in January 2022 amid warring bids in the ruling party over who would become president of Congress. Jennifer Avila, director of digital outlet Contracorriente, wrote of the Liberal Party primary, quote, "The pre-candidate who imitated Bukele did not win, despite the help of some who went to make campaign propaganda at Secot," in reference to the Salvadoran mega prison. Instead, she added, "The winner was the pre-candidate who we came to know with an anti-corruption banner and who today presents himself with the MAGA flag and a fundamentalist evangelical discourse." Last, there is the National Party, where Tito Asfura, also known by his nickname Papi, is projected to win around 76% of votes. Asfura, who has been investigated for embezzlement, came in second place in the 2021 elections and was mayor of Tegucigalpa from 2014 to 2022. The National Party, the traditional right-wing party that took power following the 2009 coup d'etat, edged ahead of Libre on Wednesday as the party with the most votes, despite the stain of former President Juan Orlando Hernández's recent U.S. drug trafficking conviction. Asfura beat out Ana Garcia de Hernández, the former president's wife, who has spent recent months lobbying the Trump sphere to review the case against Juan Orlando as political persecution. And while she lost the primary, she did win the support of Trump political operative Roger Stone. On February 19th, Stone took the hard line on X. JOH was framed for crimes he did not commit, he wrote, because he stood in the way of an authoritarian socialist government in Honduras and their globalist plans to end freedom. President Trump knows the score. Thank you for taking time from your day for Central American Minutes. I wrote today's episode with production and original soundtrack by Omnion. Be sure to subscribe wherever you do your streaming and drop us a like or a review. Our mantra at El Faro English is simple: journalism must go on. We'll be back next week. Hasta pronto.